Hey y'all, that's Kevin.
And this here is Damon, and we're implicitly biased.
I don't know why I decided to do that, but that was pretty fun. All right. So, my friend Kevin, I have a question that I'd like to ask you.
I am scared.
Don't be afraid. It may seem like it's a stupid question at first.
Okay.
But we kind of hinted on it in our previous podcast, and I want to delve into it a little bit deeper right now.
Okay.
It's in my notes, so I want to ask you.
Let's shoot.
Do white people like to be called white?
As opposed to...
Do they dislike it? Do they like it? Do they... I understand the different names that black people get called or whatever. It's a very deep and it's a landmine, you know. It's a what is it, a minefield? I mean, it's a. But we don't really talk much about. In your experience, do white people like to be called white? Like I was saying before, I kind of I want to go back to my roots and the Native American roots and call you the pale ones.
The pale ones. Well, honestly. Me, personally,
yeah.
As long as you don't call me late for dinner, I don't care what I'm called. We're not technically white, but we're... All right, so there's a joke out there that says that us whites have the audacity to call you colored people. But when we get squeezed out of the birth canal, we come out purplish, have some yellow, red, green tints to us before we finally settle on this peachy red goodness. So if anything, we're colored.
Right.
However, I don't have a problem with it. I think that more than anything, white is easier to say than Caucasian, so call me white.
Well, I don't know. I feel like it can be just as complicated as it is for black people, because Caucasian suggests the Caucasus Mountains, which is the Russian region.
Yeah. But
you may not have any family members who were ever even near the Caucasus Mountains, and we call you Caucasian. And I mean, like when they call us African American. There's a good argument to be made to say that, you know, some of you guys are more African than some of us ever will be or ever have been, and we automatically relate it to the skin color, but it should be more about the actual heritage.
Well, wouldn't a white guy from South Africa that moves to America and becomes a citizen, he's African American?
He's literally African, like Charlize Theron.
Yeah,
she's literally African American.
Or if you look at someone like Idris Elba,
right? What would you call him?
He's not African American because he's not American.
Yeah, and so even if his heritage does come from African, we call him African British or African
or European
yeah. So. But we're back on the black people. We're talking about the whites.
But white people, I don't have a problem with being called white, and I don't know anybody that does. And I think it might lean on, you don't have to call us anything because we're on top of everything already.
You're the normal.
We're the normal.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, could it also? Because I heard a guy. I was watching his channel on the YouTubes, and he was saying that. Basically, in so many words, I'm paraphrasing. He was saying that one of the reasons that white people don't mind so much being called white is because white has always invoked good. It's always invoked the idea of good, pure, clean, righteous, light. You know what I mean? Whereas, if we were to call you anything other than white, it might invoke something else, like another,
like pale
something
face.
Dirtier or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know what I mean? Something less pure, something less pinnacle, because the stance that you're already in, you feel like you're in the pinnacle. Does that make any sense?
It makes sense.
And so when he said that, I'm like, I guess that kind of does, make some sense. It kind of does gel and mesh. That might be one of the reasons why they're like, oh yeah, call me white. Was we're pure, we're clean, we're the. Whereas all the other colors, You know, if something yellow comes from anything, you're like, wait, something's wrong. We automatically associate yellow with something being murky, or you know, because we.
Yeah.
I'm not calling people, but you know what I'm saying. Or red, we associate red with meaning something, you know, blood or whatever. Or we associate black with being dirty or being mucky. Brown being dirty, being, you know what I'm saying. So white is the only one that's like, oh yeah, I'll be white because it's clean. Or, you know what I mean. So do you think white people like being called white?
Well, more than anything, I don't think we think about it.
Yeah.
Because it's so the normal.
Right.
We don't have to think about it.
Right.
We don't have to like it or not, because that's kind of the way it is.
Right. And when you hear it, it's like no big deal. Like,
It's
so
like
you're a white
whatever.
man. Oh yeah, that's right. That's about right. Yeah.
Darn tootin'. Now, flip it around. Do you want to be called African American? Because you've never been to Africa.
Not one.
You're Sierra Vista American.
Sierra Vista.
Does automatically being called black or being lumped in as a group of black people, to me it doesn't sound bad, but to you, as being called that your whole life, does that sound bad to you?
Well, the thing is such a
does it depend on the connotation on which somebody calls you black?
I think yes, but not as much as you may think, because there are so much worse things to be called. So yes, it depends on that, but it also doesn't. It's hard to explain. Like I said, it's such a minefield when you're. And I'm not going to speak from my experience again, but it's such a minefield when you start. Like you said, I'm not from Africa. Never spent 1 second of my life in Africa. So why would I be called an African American? And if we're going by our family line or something like that. You know, there's a good argument to be made. You know, my name is Malone. There's a good argument to be made for Irish American.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If we're going by our, patriarchal side or, whatever else.
So
maybe.
you might come from Ireland before you even come from Africa.
Right. Which, why couldn't I make that argument? And then, and again, if we're like, well, if you keep going back with everybody, you're going to end up in Africa.
Yeah, all of us will be from there anyway.
So I mean, I don't necessarily like to be called African American because I feel like that's not fair to Africans.
False advertising.
Yeah, it's not so much to me. Like, fine, you want to come here. I mean, I don't know anything about it. I can't say it's a bad thing or a good thing, but it's not fair to people who actually are African American to be,
like those that actually migrated here,
right, from Africa and who are now American citizens
within the last few generations.
Like, if we're being honest, our former president, President Obama, is an African American. Right. His dad is an African. His mom is American. He's an African American. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
Whereas his wife, she's just an American.
Yeah.
Her line goes back. I think she traced it back. Her line goes back to the transatlantic slave trade. She's just American. Why would you even? It's so far removed from her culture, from her. She couldn't say what tribe she came from. Nothing. So at the end of the day, she's just American. And I think when people usually ask me that, like, well, what should I call you? African American, black? Should I call you, Afro American, Negro, blah? So just call me an American, because at the end of the day, what differentiates me from any other American? Like real American. What is the difference between me? But then in the same token, that's the reason I said it's a minefield. And in the same token, I have a cultural experience that is very different from what I would say any other American is.
Any normal American.
But I wouldn't even say a normal, because I would say other, because there are, let's say Vietnamese Americans who are American. Yeah. They were born here. They've been here their family's been here for 3 generations, 4 generations. They're American. They don't have no accent. They can't speak whatever the language is in Vietnam. I don't know if it's Vietnamese or whatever. I don't know.
Think so, yeah.
Okay, whatever it is. They don't speak that. But at the end of the day, they have a cultural experience that is very much steeped in the Vietnamese culture.
They kept the absolute Vietnamese culture going.
Not even if it's not absolute, even if it is like Italian Americans, they have a culture that people in Italy don't understand. They're
they've melded with the American
culture, and they've mixed it, and so now they're Italian Americans. but realistically, they're just Americans. They have an experience that its roots come from Italy. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so the reason you put them in that categorization is because they have their culture that they've come from, even though they're American. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing like with black folks. I mean, you could do that for every other culture. And truly, you could do it for a lot of white cultures. For the Germans who are in America.
They're completely different than anything that I've lived with.
Yeah, exactly. They have the people from Poland. Oh my God, they have like their own little sections of town, and you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's the Jewish people, the white Jews, the people who are, of lighter skin tone that are Jewish. Their whole culture is a totally different one, but they've been here for, like I said, 3, 4, 5 generations. They're American, but their culture is different. Does that make any sense? They're what they were brought up in, but they're 100% American. They saluted the flag. They did everything that every other kid did. Why would they not be called American? So I don't know. That's the reason I say it's a sticky topic because, and again, I think that leads back to my question. Why are white people just okay with just getting that broad label, just white American? Why wouldn't you want to be like, well, I'm actually German American, or I'm actually, because you want us to take the African American, even though we probably couldn't tell you.
I don't know if it's that we want you to take that.
Right.
I don't know absolutely who assigned the label. I think, but it's been perpetuated for so long that who knows.
Right.
If I had a choice to pick my own label, it'd be fat.
Until you change it, and then what would it be?
Not fat.
It would be not fat American. I'm not fat American.
I think you have a big point in saying that. Just, I like the label of being an American, but everything has to be because the way the way that society has been set before us, there has to be labels on everything.
Right.
You can't. You're not allowed to live life without labels.
Right.
You see examples of that all throughout school.
Everywhere.
Just constantly.
Yeah.
Labels.
Well, not even even with the labels. One time I actually sat and I thought about it, and I'm like, I started going down like the list of all my labels, and I'm like, okay, so firstly, because we all come from Africa, I guess I can put African, and I was trying to get to the American part. You know how we say African American, but I was trying to get all the middle of the alphabet, that gets you from A to Z. So I was like, okay, African, North American, United Statesian, if that's even a thing. And then I went down the whole list. I'm like, okay, Arizonan, Sierra Vista, and I'm like, okay. And then at the end of it, I'm like, American. And I was like, well, you have to do that, even though you shouldn't have to do that, because our land is so vast. Because we had so many people coming in and migrating and all that stuff, our culture is so vast. It's so deep. There's so many facets to it. Until if you don't do that, you'll miss out on something that the person actually is.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You miss out on their experience.
You have the potential to miss out on that cultural aspect that makes them special.
Right. And then you have to put it all into the American culture. Does that make any sense? Like for instance, if you take somebody who is Maori from New Zealand, there are people from New Zealand, but then there are people who are Maori. Does that make any sense? And they have their culture, even though they have the New Zealand culture, and the people from New Zealand have the Maori culture, even though they're not Maori. Does that make any sense? So it's like a melting pot. We always say it, but when you really think about a melting pot, it comes from melting down wax, all different types of waxes, so you can make candles. And when you look, there's like different types of candles in there, and they all melt together to make this one thing. And that's really what we have in America. But you have to respect the different things that were put into it. Otherwise, you lose what it really is.
Yeah, then you're basically oil and water, and you never fully emulsify.
Right.
You need some of that flour in there to help emulsify.
Right.
And that's where talking is the flower that we all need in this country to emulsify our implicit bias into friendships.
Right.
Because I couldn't tell you how many friendships probably were passed by because we're like, I don't like the way his family looks, or I don't like the shirt he's wearing, or whatever. Same thing on me. I don't like the car he's driving, so I can't be friends with him. And I've learned a lot because we'll stay in the car world. I used to hate the lowrider scene because they weren't powerful engines. They weren't this. They weren't that. They were generally Mexicans and the like. Not that I hated Mexicans. I hated the cars.
Right.
But I also didn't understand anything about the cars until later in my career when I started understanding the engineering that went into it. And those dudes did that in high school, and I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I missed out on a lot of people's friendships because I was being naive, thinking that was just small wheels on a big car and this and that and that and this. But I absolutely love it now because I opened up. I took that implicit bias and I opened the head of it and looked inside and said, why do you hate it? There's no reason.
Right.
And lots of times people are just too self-centered, too scared of other people's judgments of what they're going to think.
Right.
So when you stop letting other people's judgments affect your decisions, you open up a whole new world.
Right. I totally agree with you on that. I absolutely agree with you. And I think that's what leads to more hate and more division. I don't have to totally like whatever it is you're doing to accept that you do it and that's part of you.
Yeah.
And ultimately to accept you. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, unless what I like or you like is hurting another person.
Right.
Or hurting yourself.
Right.
Like there's a point to just let people do what they want to do.
Right.
Like this new thing that the president wants to ban vape pens all of a sudden. Why? A few people have died from it. That's a bummer. But they did something stupid by inhaling whatever into their lungs. But they did to themselves. They weren't forced to do that.
Right.
But we do that in our own friendships, in our own interactions every day. We ban something stupid because we see a couple things that we don't like about a person. And we don't dive deeper into the situation or the better things about that person.
Right.
Or the worst things about myself thinking these things about a person.
Right. Do you think that we take a lot of this stuff just way too seriously? Which side you're on, which side I'm on, what I like, do you think we take some of that stuff, not to say that some of the points or the reasons behind it are not serious, but we take it too far in some things? Do you think
I absolutely do, and I think it leans a lot on being, you are always thinking about what people are going to think about your reaction or your action towards, say my grandparents didn't like black people, and I become friends with a black person, or I don't become friends with a black person because of what they will think about me. That I think people lean on that a lot more than, I mean, if you look at the movie with the football people,
Remember the Titans.
Remember the Titans. That dude didn't like black people, straight up. And they basically became brothers at the end of it. But he didn't do it because he let the influence of somebody else affect his bottom line decision.
Right. And I don't know. I think that because I'm one of the type of people, this, I like to really hear both sides. I think it's important to try to hear both aspects before I make my decision or my judgment on how I feel about it. And I really feel like whenever I do, the rare time when I actually do watch Fox News or MSNBC or any of those other polarizing site or polarizing places, whenever I do, I'm like, man, they just they're taking that too seriously. Like,
oh, absolutely.
You know, they're like going, they're taking something that seriously is like not even an anthill. It's a grain of salt, and they are making it the mountain that everybody needs to climb. And I feel like those may be on a grander scale, but I feel like when we whittle it down to our own psyche, or we whittle it down to who we are as people, we all kind of do that with something. We take some things just way too seriously that don't really need to be taken that seriously. And that leads to division, to hatred, to biases, to, you know, all those different things. And I think if we could learn to just be a little bit more lighthearted about things, I think that would change so much more in society and in our implicit bias. Then I think that would do a lot more than anything else. I know we always say like love and all that sort of stuff. It's hard to love somebody who you've been conditioned all your life to hate.
Yeah.
It's hard to even acknowledge that person, much less love them. So yes, love is the ultimate thing in the end. But I think if we could just start with just, let's just not take that too seriously. Let's just pull that thin layer off. And then maybe you won't take something else too seriously. Then maybe you won't take, and you just start there. I think you can kind of, really move forward. Because on both sides, if you take people who, let's say, people who hate Indians or Native Americans, people who hate Native Americans, if they would have actually went into those Native American cultures, they would have realized, well, there's a reason why they do this, and that. And just because it may not be what you want to do in your life doesn't mean that they're a savage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they automatically are, labeled as a savage. Well, they eat with their hands, or they don't have on, a bunch of clothes. Well, it's hot out here. Why in the world am I going to wear a 5-piece suit when it's hot out? You know what I mean? But, you whittle it down, and then you start to understand. But people take everything. This society, especially lately, oh my God. People take everything too seriously.
Every tiny little thing.
You can't watch a movie without somebody getting offended. You can't produce a movie without somebody getting offended. Somebody was touched. Listen.
Or even, it's like Dave Chappelle said in this last stand-up, you can't do anything 20 years ago.
Right.
For fear of what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right.
Like they could take something he said, twist it, and do all this, and he's a bad guy, and he doesn't get to host the Oscars anymore.
Right. But the thing, even if they don't twist it, even if that's I believe people can change, and people can progress, and people can learn, people can grow. That may be exactly how I felt 100% 20 years ago.
Yes.
With no reservation. That's the way I feel. And 20 years later, you're like, you know what? The more I've thought about it, the more I've learned, the more I've read, the more I've grown. I really don't feel that way anymore. And this society is like, oh, no, you said it. Mm-hmm. So you're a bad person now. And like, whoa, wait, I can't. Even this thing with Liam Neeson, where he was saying how like he was so angry because one of his friends got raped, and she said it was a black guy, and he was so mad that he walked around the streets. This is like, what did he say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Just hoping to bump into a black guy so he could kill him. Oh, he wants to kill black people. No. This dude was angry one night because one of his good friends had just gotten raped, and he made a bad decision. Now, yes, it could have been worse. He could have actually ran into a black guy. He could have actually hurt somebody, or he could have got jacked up. I mean, it could go both ways. Mm-hmm. The bottom line is he made a decision 20-something years ago that nothing came of. Yeah. Nothing. Like, he didn't hurt anybody. He was mad one night, and he was just telling you a story about how that happened. And, people are like, oh, I guess that next movie that he put out was like his worst movie ever that he was involved with. It got like $7 million on a like $20 million budget. Don't get me wrong. I as a black man, I'm like, well, I don't want nobody to be mad at somebody else and come and try to beat me up. That would suck because I didn't rape anybody. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you're entitled to be mad. Even the Bible says, be mad and sin not. Like, you're entitled to be mad. You're entitled to vent. You're not entitled to kill anybody, but you're entitled to be upset. So when I have like this society, when they look at that instance and they're like, oh no, he's a bad person.
He's definitely a racist because he did this 20 years ago.
Yeah, he wants to kill black men. Like, no, he was hoping that he could kill that black person. But since he didn't know who that black person was, just right now, anybody will do because I'm really mad because my friend got raped. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I don't like this society the way we are, where we can't. We just don't. It's like we don't have the right to grow, and that's when you really boil it down. That's what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying you don't have the right to grow.
You aren't allowed to go past your worst day.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, that's all they're pushing on everybody is you have to grow past your worst day, or else. But it only applies to who we allow it to apply to.
Correct.
A little bit more lighthearted. What about somebody like Paula Deen, who again way back in the day said what she said, and then you could tell I can't tell that she doesn't feel the same way again, but she doesn't say it anymore. But because of what she said 20 years ago, her show's canceled, this, that, the other. How does that work? How is that different than Liam Neeson's case?
To me, I don't feel like it's any different. In fact, I'm kind of pissed off because she cooked some fantastic
stuff. Some of that stuff was good.
The stuff she cooked, I'm like, God, I wish I could go to her house. At the end of the day, that's, listen.
It's the minefield that you're talking about.
It is the minefield. And if we're being honest, and I'm not telling you, I'm not asking you to admit anything. Don't admit it because then they're going to crucify you too.
I'm never going to host the Oscars. Darn.
But listen. I don't think there's too many white people on earth, or especially not in America, I'll say in America, who hasn't said the N-word. And even if they maybe haven't said it out loud, they've definitely thought it a couple times. So, that's, even if they've maybe not have said it in anger or hatred, I doubt there's any, even if it's something like you and your friends are hanging out, like, just say it, bro. You said it. Mm-hmm. Everybody said it. Okay?
But on the same hand, whatever the word may be for white people, black people and every other race have said that word against white people and against Mexicans. We've all got it. And when this happens, though, when Hollywood comes down and says, "Oh, he said this back then," but I can guarantee you said it too,
or worse.
Yeah.
And we do. I feel like it's justified. We do have a different standard for white people. We don't have to get into why I feel like it's justified that we have a different standard right now for white people. That'll be a whole nother show for another time. But we do have a different standard for white people. But when in the instance of something like that, she probably did mean to say the N-word. She probably meant every word she said.
She absolutely meant to say it. I heard the clips.
Who cares? Like, there's nothing. Listen, she is a Southern woman. She's from the South. She's an older Southern woman. Listen, saying the N-word was like eating Skittles. Like, it's just what they did. It's just like frying catfish. That's what they did down there. It's part of who she was. Mm-hmm. Now, I'd like to believe that she's a different person now. The truth is she might be bitter now because of everything that happened. She might be like, man, I can't stand it, whatever that. She might say it even more now than she did.
She might actually have a semi-hatred now when before she was saying it because that's what they did.
Her culture was, right. Yeah. And that's the thing that I think we often forget. The culture was different 5 years ago, much less, even more so 10 years ago, even more so 20 or 30 or 40. So if that's the culture that she lived in, there's nothing wrong with saying that. I was watching Lethal Weapon last night. And it got to the point where they were talking about this woman was in the bed with another woman. Mel Gibson said, "Oh, disgusting," but keep going. And I said, dude, if he had to put that in any movie, because that movie came out in 87, year I was born. That's how long ago that movie is, so it's 32 years old. If he had to put that in any movie recently where he said two women in the bed together was disgusting, they would try to crucify. They would lose their marbles.
But that's like, you go back in Blazing Saddle time. Oh, they could never make Blazing Saddles.
Oh, no. And it's a fantastic movie.
They would get crucified.
Oh, my God.
Like right out the gate.
That or we were...
Heck, I don't even think you could make Passion of the Christ right now.
Probably
because
not.
Of how much...
Probably
hatred
not.
That the whole Christian
religion
is facing.
You couldn't even make good, honest humor stuff like The Naked Gun.
No,
where it was just kind of in. You probably couldn't even make Austin Powers in today's climate.
Probably not.
You couldn't make it.
I think by the time Goldmember came out, it was waning on being allowed to do that.
Right. Right, to make those, and that's the reason why Adam Sandler's career, everybody's like, "Oh, that's a crappy movie," and I'm like, it is no different than the movies he did in the '90s.
No, they're the same exact. It's not that they're the same exact movies, but the same
premise,
quality of comedy.
Exactly.
He hasn't changed.
No,
but in that, it's still allowed.
Only because it's him, and people automatically have written him off.
Yeah, kind of.
Like when Quentin Tarantino put out The Hateful Eight. Or Django, when he put out both. Oh my God, everybody lost their minds. Well, not everybody, but a lot of people lost their mind. I thought those movies were great for what they were. Mm-hmm. Both of them, I thought they were great. But people were, well, it said the N word 148 times in the movie. I'm like, you said it 148 times. Who cares? You know, this society is hypocrites. It's a hypocritical society. They want to talk about freedom and free thinkers. I had an argument with one of my friends online. She's really against Christianity. She, regularly posts like hell, Satan, and stuff like that. She's really against Christianity, and she's just really bitter because she was raised in the church I was raised in. But I still love you. Anyways, so she put on there, because it was during the time where President Trump was talking about having Bible studies in the classroom. And she was going on this rant about, we want to have a society of free thinkers. Why are we going to put this closed-mindedness in there, blah, 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 blah. We're going to have free thinkers, free thinkers, free thinkers, free thinkers. I said, basically in so many words, I said, so your solution is we should make them only learn what we want them to learn for them to be free thinkers.
Yes.
So we'll funnel them and bottleneck them and only teach them the fairy tales we believe. But we want them to be free thinkers. So wait, if we're gonna, and she was saying how the Bible's a fairy tale. I'm like, it also can be said that what you believe in is a fairy tale, that the Earth sparked 60 billion years ago, or 60 trillion years ago, rain fell on rocks, and all of a sudden single cell organisms happened. I don't know where you're from, but that's a fairy tale.
That sounds like sci-fi.
That sounds like a sci-fi. That's something on Star Trek. You know what I mean? Oh, it rained for 1 billion years, and the rain turned into the primordial soup, and the primordial soup, all of a sudden, bloop, life. That sounds like a fairy tale. So I'm like, well, if that's not a fairy tale, then how come it can't be? There's this great being in the beginning of all time, space, and everything that spoke and created. Why can't, if it's about being a free thinker, why can't we tell both of them and then let people decide what they want to tell or what they want to believe in? It's not that I believe that one agenda should be pushed. If there's a school that wants to have Bible studies, why not?
Yeah.
If there's a school that wants to have every school has evolution studies, but you understand what I'm saying? Why shouldn't it be allowed for people to be free thinkers, to have that choice? And this society they're hypocritical. They don't want free thinkers. They want people to think freely like them.
Yes.
And that's what it's about.
Like there's a song out there that says, you have free speech of words that we choose.
Right.
That and that's our society to a T.
Oh, yeah. And they don't even realize they're pushing us more. That attitude, they think is giving us more freedom, but it's pushing us more communist.
Absolutely.
That's pushing us more, and I don't want to get into those deep, communism and all that, but it really is. That is really what communism is about. You can do blah, blah, blah in this box.
Yes.
You have whatever liberties we give you.
You can go to school and work as long as you stay here. Right.
You don't get to just grow in your own way.
Yeah.
You grow in this box the way we want you to. And they're like, "Oh no, we're a democracy." And I'm like, first of all, we're a Republican, but a republic.
A republic, yeah.
But we're a democratically elected republic. We won't get into all that either. But they don't realize that what they're really trying to push isn't better than what we have right now. I should be able to, if I want to use a word that you don't like, I should, first of all, have the right to say whatever word that you don't like, but I should also have the respect to acknowledge that it may offend you and not say it.
Yes.
That's the reason I love Mr. Rogers, because I feel like he allows that. Like, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want to do, but if you love this person, you wouldn't want to hurt them.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And even if you don't love them per se, you should love everybody enough not to offend anybody. Mm-hmm. And I think that is what this society is like missing out on both sides. On one side, all those liberals, they're such, and then on the other side, all those conservatives, they're all and before you know it, nobody is like what we were saying, nobody's taking that thin layer off.
Well, nobody. Yeah, they all they do is put a shield up every time something comes across the line, and that's why you and I, guys like you and I, sitting in the middle, are like just looking back and forth, like,
yeah. I wish you both would stop because you both are idiots.
You're making us all look stupid.
Really, and obviously, we're in a society that we want to highlight what is news, and if there's not news, we'll make news. But the fact that the far left and the far right have such a big voice, and the vast majority that are in the middle don't.
We got nothing.
I'm like
every election we have a Republican and we have Democrat, but they literally crap on anybody that comes out of the middle.
Yeah.
We'll give you 3 votes because that's all you're allowed to have, because nobody's allowed to vote for anybody but red or blue.
Right. Pretty much. Yeah. And I feel like the problem is that so many people in their mind feel like, well, it has to be red or blue. Like, I have to choose red or I have to choose blue. And if whatever they lean more in that direction, they just go with that.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, like like on both sides, there are some things on both sides that I 100% agree with. I'm like, you know what? You're 100% right. And there are some things on both sides I'm like, these people are crazy.
Absolutely.
They have lost their mind. So because of that, I'm like, I feel like if I side with either one of you, I'm giving you license for all the things that I disagree with. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense? So like if when I talk to people who are like diehard Trump supporters, I'm like, fine, if you want to support them, that's your business. God bless you. Move forward. But by you wearing your MAGA hat and by you waving your flag and everything, what you're signifying to me is that everything that he stands for, you agree with.
Yeah.
Even if that's not the case, which in almost every case is not. But what you signify to me is that's what you like. I'm not going to represent something that I don't love, even at least 95%. I'm not going to represent it if it's not something that I'm really wildly crazy about. I'm not going to put a sticker on my car for something I'm like, well, that was a 75% good meal, so I'm going to put the sticker. Like, no, if like 75% of the time I like to eat at this place, so I'll put the sticker on.
It's like getting a Chiquita banana tattoo when sometimes you like Dole bananas too.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And so when I see people who are, on the other side, when people are like, oh, 100% burn, like I'm Bernie. I think there's some things Bernie says I think are great. There's some things Bernie says I'm like, what was he smoking before he got on the podium?
Right.
You know, and I'm just being honest. But then people that are like Bernie, I'm like, so you agree with everything that he's preaching and teaching and saying, and I can't dig that. I can't get behind that. I can't put that sticker on my car. I can't, because I don't agree with everything. I think some of the stuff he's proposing is disastrous. And I feel that way about everything. So when I see people that endorse stuff like that, I'm like, man, maybe you should just go to the middle. Like if you only are a 50%er, don't be one of those guys just because you represent that like I put on my piece of paper that I'm Republican, so I gotta just dive all the way in. Like, no, you don't. And I feel like that's how they make us sheep.
Well, absolutely. I think they make us sheep by allowing the hypocritical behavior that they do be the norm. You know, we'll use Bernie again. He'll get up there and say, we need to spread the wealth, and he's worth $10 million or something like that. Share some of that $10 million because, I could use some gas in my gas tank, guy. But he's not about to do that.
Right.
Or you got AOC up there saying, we got to save the environment, and then she drives around in a Suburban and flies here and there in a plane. How are we supposed to listen to you and do all this when you can't even live by your own preaching?
But then, I also wonder, or this hits my mind, whenever I hear that argument, wouldn't you be even equally as turned off if they both were like that?
No, because at least they stuck by their convictions. If Bernie got up there and he was only worth $47,000, he could actually talk to us and know our middle class plight or whatever. Wait, but he's up there as a millionaire saying that millionaires are bad and everybody should be middle class, while he has zero interest in ever not being a millionaire.
Okay, so let me see. If it was a situation where AOC, if she was like, okay, well, I'm going to walk everywhere, right? I'm not going to get in my Suburban. And so and I'm going to take public transportation, so she has to use the whatever security, Secret Service, whatever it is she has, and she takes forever getting everywhere she's going to go and all that stuff. You wouldn't be like, God, she's really overboard. You wouldn't think like,
I
she's just going,
think that.
She's going.
But I would also
respect
her for her conviction to it. Right now, she's got zero respect because she's
normal, or because
she doesn't grab any of her rhetoric with conviction, with actual conviction, and stick to it.
Okay.
It's not just the liberal side. Trump is the same way.
No, I'm not. I'm just asking because whenever I think about, because I hear these arguments on both sides, and I'm like, but if they really were like bad,
if they were,
we would be like, these people are crazy.
She's crazy now, but she's crazy without my respect. She'd be crazy with my respect.
I get you.
Like there's an actor in Hollywood who went green years and years ago, completely solar, off grid, this, that, the other, and he's crazy about it. He rides his bicycle everywhere, but he has it with such conviction that I absolutely respect him getting up on his house and cleaning his solar panels every day to get the most efficiency out of it. He is grasped onto that. So if he got up there and said, we have to save the planet, I believe him.
Right.
He actually wants it. He's not just a puppet like most politicians are.
Right.
And that's my problem with most politicians. And even in the middle, the politicians I see, they're trying to be poster boys for being in the middle.
Right. Well, that's what I don't know. I think that's the thing that frustrates me. And people are like, "Well, they're being in politics. Like
that's their job.
That's what they're supposed to do.
They're supposed to try and make the best representation to the biggest group of people,
exactly,
of their constituents.
Right.
But
I and again, like I said, like when you talk about Bernie, I read this thing and it was like, well, yeah, but before Bernie's book, he was like a 1,000, like 100,000 there just because of his salary that he got from being a senator. When he published his book, that's the reason he became a millionaire, and all that came after.
Well, his wife had money, so he basically had money too.
But I'm just saying, I don't know. I just read the thing, and then I think I'm like, well, if Bernie was like, oh, okay, well, no, I'm going to I'm going to give away all my like he did write the book.
Yeah,
he did do the work, and if he's willing to pay the higher taxes that is that still being hypocritical?
I think he's hypocritical because he says that we should all do this, but he's not going to live by the words he's preaching. If he pays the taxes, I personally don't have a problem with him having all that money at all. He can have all that money. I have a problem with him saying that we should all chip in and pay our fair share, and he's probably just like every other American, paying as little taxes as possible.
Probably.
I go out and do my tax return and try to pay as little taxes as possible.
Right.
Same with Donald Trump. Same with the dude from Amazon. Yeah. Same with Bill Gates. Everybody. We try to pay as little. That is.
But my thing is, if he pays his taxes, is that really being hypocritical? If he's doing it, if what he's presenting, and I'm not a Bernie fan, but I know I'm just playing the devil's advocate. But if he's doing what he says,
if he would, like I said with AOC, if she got out and walked and did all that stuff, but I don't think he is. I see news reports and stuff that said he only paid this, he's driving around this, he did that. So he's not living
being transparent though, right?
No, not really.
No.
Because people will bring up, oh, you got a fancy sports car. You don't really care about the environment. You spent $100,000 on this car. You don't really care about.
Okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate 100%. Okay, all right. So he has a fancy sports car, but let's say he doesn't. Let's say he drives around a Prius, as the people on Top Gear they call it Prius. Let's say he drives around a Prius, but he also owns one of the largest dairy farms in Wisconsin. Would you be mad at him then? because dairy puts out like 1,000,000 times more than any car does.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just playing the devil's advocate.
No, I was just using the car as an example.
I know, but what I'm saying is like in those instances, a lot of times we get fixated on one thing that it really, in the grander scheme of things, because I was listening to a guy, he was like, oh, you got to stop using this so much water, you got to stop doing this, and all. He was like, at the end of the day, none of that really matters. We need to stop these 3 or 4 major corporations that are actually the ones that are causing the problems that we see. And it's not so much what you do in your house that's really going to matter all that much. It's not so much the car that you drive or any of that other stuff. It really matters that these big corporations are pumping all this stuff, and that's what really matters. So in light of that, would you be more mad at him or whatever if he, like I said, he drove around a Prius, or if he had like a big dairy farm and that was really producing like 80 times more than all the cars in his region are producing?
No, like I said, I wouldn't be mad at him if he actually, if he wants everybody to pay 10% tax across the board, right, or 30% tax across the board, right, and he was actually paying 30%. Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so
I just want people to stand by their convictions.
Okay, so let me see if I can understand this right. So what you're basically implying is,
I don't want people to be hypocrites.
I get you, but what you're basically implying is when Bernie goes to do his taxes, he should be like, I know the tax rate is 10%. But just knock another 20 on there for me, so that way when people see my tax returns, they'll know. You would say he's crazy, Kev.
I would, like I said before, I would absolutely say he was crazy. But he's standing by the convictions that he got up there and said, we need to pay this much so we can pump into the other social programs that he wants, the insurance.
Right. I get you. But what I'm saying, but would that? So you think that would be the right thing for him to do?
I think to gain my respect, yes. Because he would be living up to what he's preaching on his pulpit every week.
Okay, so let me flip the script then. I'm just playing the devil's advocate. You know how I like to do. I have no pony in this race. Okay, let's flip the script again. Let's say he's like, okay, we need to reduce. How am I going to work this in? I want to say something about somebody who's talking about the farm workers. And if they're like saying, like, we need to stop doing blah, blah, blah to farm, should they get out there and work in the farms? Like if they're saying, Donald, there we go. Let's say Donald Trump's saying, you know what? I'm tired of these illegal immigrants. Forget these illegal immigrants. We need to get more Americans down there working. Would you respect him more if he went out, instead of going golfing, he went out and just started picking some strawberries?
I would think he was crazy, but
okay.
But I would still respect him for being an example.
The photo op.
Yes, I would absolutely respect the photo op for being a photo op, but knowing that none of that will ever happen, it's fantasy.
But that's my point.
None of the politicians are going to come off their high tower, right, to live the way they're preaching.
But my thing is like,
I think AOC is probably the closest to it because she was a bartender 2 years ago or whatever, and now she's here. So she's the least politician out of all of them.
Which is why everybody hates her, and
they hate her just like they hated Trump when he first got in.
Well, that's why everybody hates him, because he's not a politician.
But that's kind of why I like both of them for what they are in shaking up the entire terrible system.
I like the way they shake it up, but like we've talked about this before. I don't want a dentist working on my car.
Yes.
And I don't want a mechanic working on my teeth.
Yes.
Like, yes, they'll shake up the system. I'm sure that dentist will shake up my car real good. He'll make things different. But at the end of the day, I want my car to run efficiently, and I want my teeth to be done properly.
But if you go back to the founding fathers, like was it Dr. Carver Ben Carson? Oh. He said in his that famous prayer breakfast speech that he did, that when the country was founded, which is cultures and cultures and cultures ago, when this was doable, there weren't politicians.
Right.
There were doctors. There were lawyers, obviously.
Right.
There were
regular
farm
people.
owners.
Right.
There were regular people running the government.
Right.
For the people.
Right.
Now you only have
right.
lawyers.
Right.
fighting for their side only. And
Well,
I think that is why, because lawyers don't fight for the greater good. They fight for their
win.
side against the other person's
right,
side.
to win. It's essentially just
And
to win. Yes.
So that cuts out all the middle ground where the people represented live.
Well, and I think that the problem that our country is in now is that if you don't have that law background, you really won't know what you're talking about or what's going on.
Heck, they have the law background and they don't know what they're
See
talking
what I'm saying?
about.
And but you have to at least have that that basis to even know how things really work and really function. Or you really have to have a dynamic team of lawyers who are in your ear telling you how things operate and they work. And it sucks, but that's just the way our system is now. It has to be that way.
That's what we evolved it into.
Exactly.
That's what they evolved it
Right.
into. Because we, as the majority of America, they're not representing us at all.
Oh no, they're representing their interests.
Number one, because we don't have enough money.
Right. Well, we do, but
individually we do
right.
not.
Right.
We don't have enough money to put a worm in a politician's ear to change anything.
Exactly.
Because we in general are not giant corporations with billions of dollars behind us.
Exactly.
So we can throw millions of dollars at an issue.
I agree.
Like the vape pen thing getting banned. That is not because 5 people died.
No.
The government doesn't care. The government has never seen 5 people die. That is because probably Big Tobacco said, "Hey,
finally,
vape pens are killing people.
Finally.
You should ban them." Here.
And here's the crazy thing. We probably would be shocked or heartbroken to know the number of people who have died from cigarettes in the last 100 years.
Oh,
for cigarette related,
hundreds of millions of people.
We were probably heartbroken, but nobody's banning
but
cigarettes.
There's no money in. I mean, there's money in tobacco. There's taxes in tobacco.
Right.
There's all this in tobacco.
Right.
And money is the great eye opener and the ear closer.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that was a good combo.
That was a good combo.
Next time on Implicitly Biased, we'll be talking about something else.
Yes. Totally different.
Peace.
Peace.